and welcome to our first In Conversation of 2025. My name is Warren White. I'm the president of Tesla Owners UK, and I'm joined by Andy Elvers, long-term Tesla owner and committee member. And actually, do you want to just say what experience of Teslas you've got?
Well, over the years, I've had all four. S, X, 3, and then Y. So not quite sexy, not quite in the right order, but far.
Excellent. So you can bring some great experience to the conversation tonight. I've been a Model S owner for the last 7 and a bit years. I've driven all the models, including the original Roadster. I was lucky enough to drive. But nothing's prized me out of my S yet. But the topic of our conversation tonight may well be the thing that prizes me out of my S. You never know. But between myself and Andy, we're going to chat about the new Chinese Tesla Model YL. So questions will be, just pop them in the chat bar if there's anything that crops up that you think we should cover. Otherwise, we'll run through a bit of an informal conversation about the new Model YL, cover a few things about it and also the wider implications for Tesla. And well, let's see how it goes. I think this is a really interesting time for Tesla. And we've got someone else join us. And it's interesting, this is coming out of China rather than out of the US first. So shall I just set some context before we get into the nitty-gritty of what we see in front of us? So the long wheelbase Model Y was teased to us about a month ago now, when the YYY logo was shown and some initial specs were shared because of the way that Chinese manufacturers or Chinese-made cars have to be filed with the government. So we had some teasing information over the last 4 weeks of what was going to come. Then Monday, there was lots of scoop photographs starting to appear around the Chinese internet and creeping out into the West. And I thought, you know what, there's quite a lot happening today. So I was one of those geeky nerds who thought they'd stay up into the early hours of Monday night and logged into the Tesla website, and lo and behold, around 2 o'clock in the morning, we could see the new Model YL. So officially launched on Tuesday this week, so we're only 24 hours after that, really. Lots has come out over the last 24 hours, which we'll talk about in a minute. Deliveries start in China in the next week or so, and definitely, and as of this evening, it looks like deliveries are now into September. So it looks like the initial interest has been significant. But anyway, what did we learn about this new model, Andy? It's a 6-seat Model Y.
Yeah, we got some pictures to show. I mean, these are all obviously from the mainly from X, which has been the main source. It's quite interesting because I think they've done a pretty good job of extending it, because I think there's been rumors about this car for quite a while, maybe 6 months at least. People saying that it was coming, that they were doing this maybe as a Chinese-owned model, because again, Warren, this idea of stretching cars is very popular in China, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah. BMW, Mercedes, Audi, they all have their long wheelbase versions of European models.
Yeah.
And they do like to treat their rear passengers with a bit of space and luxury.
Yes. And apparently it's quite a thing in China to be chauffeured, so I've read. It's kind of not surprising, I think, that this car's happened. And indeed, one of the videos, the voiceover, I'm reading it rather obviously understanding Chinese, but he said this was a Tesla China-led model, and I find that very interesting, especially the reaction to it, because it seems to have had a very positive reaction globally. Lots of people in America really interested in it. I think we've seen quite a lot of positive reaction, I think, in Europe, and certainly, people I think are very interested in it. We're interested in it, which I think is quite interesting. Anyway, this first picture is somebody's overlaid the cars sort of over each other, and I think it shows really well just how much longer and higher at the back the car is, and you can see how different the roofline is. So rather than it coming up and starting to curve down, it just keeps going up. And basically, it's all about that aero bubble, isn't it? I mean, they just basically blown the bubble out and made it longer.
Absolutely. I mean, superficially, in the first few photographs I saw, you thought, well, nothing's really changed. But actually, when you start looking at it carefully, the proportions of it have dramatically changed by that extended roof line, and the higher roof line is quite significant. And the treatment of the tail has changed as well.
Yeah. So these pictures here, this is obviously the standard Juniper car. And then this is the new car. And if you kind of flick between them, I think you can really see that if we go back to the L, you can see that it's almost like someone's put something over the rear roof and just pulled it back and higher. But the whole the rear lights are quite a lot higher as well. But yes, the thing that I realize is the size of that the third window is noticeably much bigger. I think that's where I really see it is much deeper.
It's nearly getting closer to an estate than a hatchback now, the way that it pushes that windows back, without a doubt.
Just had a quick question. Do we believe that the tinting has now become completely standard in China, or is it just standard for this new model?
The which?
The window tinting, because it looks like the whole of the rear is tinted.
Oh,
when I test drove a new Juniper long-range rear wheel drive, I don't remember any tinting on a UK car.
The tinting has always been on the Model Y. The Model Y has always been tinted, and the Model X was always tinted as well. The back. It's only the 3 and the S that were never tinted, but the X and the Y have always been tinted.
Though there is some interesting difference to the rear window, because it looks like the rear window is not as heavily tinted, but it has been given a different coating, which of course they did do with the X and S windows back in the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
Presumably, it's still a full glass roof all the way back, is it?
It is indeed.
We'll come to that. Yeah.
Okay.
These were some interesting pictures where somebody has obviously lined the two up together. And the white car, interestingly, has Robotaxi logos all over it, which we'll see in a few more pictures. And it also shows this new color they've launched with this car as well, which is they've taken Quicksilver and almost made it quick champagne. It's like a slightly champagne sandy colored version of Quicksilver. Personally, I don't like it very much, but all the other colors survive. But it's kind of I think this one picture is very revealing. This is where you really see the difference. I think if you were to quickly look at the car, you would probably not realize that it's the different model. I think it will be very easily mistaken on the street. However, there are definite clues. The spoiler being one, the depth of that window here, I think is much deeper. That I think you really see it.
Indeed, it's quite surprising how many panels have changed. It's not just a simple stretch, which you might have imagined with the initial descriptions of it. It really is a reprofiled car with a very different shape, but bizarrely,
I guess they can
nearly identical.
I guess they can do the stretch much more easily on computer these days and say, what would it look like with 5% extension or something, and then just re-drag the curves of the roof line. But even and keep modeling that until they're happy with the shape from various angles.
Well, I think the difference is when you change body panels, you've got to have different presses and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting here. Clearly, the whole side panels of the car are different, but clearly the rear door is quite a different shape.
Yeah, that surprised
Yeah.
me because I thought to keep manufacturing simple, the rear door would be the same, but they could just change the glass. But no, it's complete different pressing.
It's a much bigger rear door. Look,
Yeah.
much,
Again, probably to make access to the back that bit easier.
yeah. Well, that's because of the longer wheelbase.
Mm.
You know, it's quite a substantial increase in wheelbase. But I wonder if the front door is actually the same, because when you look between them, I think the front door, they may have gotten away with it, but the glass is definitely a different shape because the roof line, sorry, I've gone the wrong way. The roof line is a different shape. So the front window glass is obviously different. Anyway, let's keep going through some of the pictures. This is interesting, I thought. The whole treatment of the rear is quite different because on the Juniper, there's like a metal panel and the window is higher. Whereas here, the window is coming all the way down, or the glass part is coming all the way down to this spoiler. There's no metal panel across the back at all. And that
Okay.
spoiler is like, it's a real lip. Which I assume, because one of the other odd things in this car is it's actually more aerodynamic than the Juniper. Only slightly, but they have made it more aerodynamic than the Juniper. And makes you wonder if this spoiler is part of it. And I assume that's also there for stability at high speed.
Indeed, it was quite surprising to see such a difference in the way that the glass goes right to the end. And then you have quite a significant spoiler, which, given that this is not purporting to be a sporty car, clearly they've done everything they could to get that aerodynamics down as low as possible. And is it what, 0.216, if I recall it right?
0.216, yeah, I've got it down, yeah. Whereas the other one's 0.22.
Yeah.
So it's only 0.04 less, but the point is, it is slightly less. Which is, I think, an amazing achievement when you consider that it's a bigger. But you see, I think it's easier to make longer cars more aerodynamic.
It is indeed.
Yeah, the length of it would actually have helped in that. But there's no doubt making that roof higher. But again, this is why the whole thing has to be curved, which, of course, you could argue is one of the issues with the Cybertruck, because it's so like this. You know, you're really giving away all of that benefit of having that smooth shape.
Indeed. I mean, I suppose it's interesting that Tesla has decided not to make the YL look superficially any different. They're definitely keeping the family resemblance as close as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a development of the Juniper.
Yeah.
And in many ways, as I'm sure we're going to come to, there are many little things in this car that are a step up from the Juniper. And when you think the Juniper was only launched at the beginning of the year, and we're only in August, I find that fascinating as well, how many little additions there are. And it makes you think, are they going to bring those back into the Juniper, the standard car? But anyway, I think that's quite interesting. The wheel course design is different, and they've gone, I think, for in a way, even more aero look. I mean, I suppose in a way it's similar to the standard car in that it's almost all covered. I actually think these wheels are reasonably attractive, even with the covers on. But obviously the covers do come off, and obviously you'd have to take them off to get to take the wheel off anyway. But the other thing of interest here is, of course, 275 rear tires. And that's significant for two reasons. Number one, it means the tires are now staggered, and which is very Model X like. So the Model X has always had staggered tires, bigger tires on the back. But the other thing, of course, is excuse me, these bigger tires on the back have a much higher weight rating, which of course goes along with the fact that the car is expected to have a higher gross weight to take more in it. Obviously, they're expecting you to put maybe up to 4 adults in the back. So clearly there's going to be a lot more weight on those tires and wheels. But yeah, quite interesting to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, another interesting point, I suppose, with the tires being even thicker now, the 275, and yet the aerodynamics have reduced, so that they must have done a fair bit of work to counteract that. Because the wider the tire, the harder it is to slice through the air.
Well, yeah, and also rolling resistance goes up, and
Mm.
it's probably no surprise. I haven't put the picture in, but it's no surprise that these Continental tires are T0. So they will have been Tesla specified spec, and you can guarantee they'll be A-rated, and you can also guarantee they'll have foam inside as well, to be as efficient EV tires. But it's interesting because a lot of the Juniper cars are coming with this Continental model as well. So they've obviously done a deal. They seem to be working their way through all the tire companies.
They certainly are. Though, of course, there's an interesting German connection being Continental.
Yes, yes, that's interesting. Yes. So then we got on some pictures of the interior, and there's three things that stand out in this picture. First one is black headliner. It's the first time a Model Y or a Model 3 is coming from the factory with a black headliner. I thought that was really interesting. Looks much better, in my opinion. That's one thing I don't like about my car. I much prefer a black headliner. Second thing is that screen is bigger.
Indeed.
It's now 16 inches, and apparently it's higher resolution as well. And I thought that was, again, another interesting, and I can't remember the size of the screen on the Model X, the Plaid, whether that may be 16 inch. So what they may have done is just taken that same screen.
That's a good point, yeah, because the old vertical one was 17 inch, but that was quite different to the new Plaid.
Yeah. But that, and you see the bezel on it is even lower. And I think the actual housing is a similar size. They've just taken the bezel, so it's almost a really slim bezel all the way around. And then the other thing to note on here is they've upgraded quite significantly the power of one of the charge ports, and both charge ports are now cooled. And I think that's obviously to do with, these overheating iPhones.
And the Chinese do like their big high-powered phones, so they're forever wanting to charge them.
Yes. So that I thought was an interesting thing. But the rest of it, including, of course, there is an indicator stalk. The rest of it, I think, is all fairly standard. The other thing to note is those seats aren't white. According to everyone who's talking, those seats are light grey, which is another interesting thing. They've moved away, or they're beginning to move away from white seats.
Now, I had a quick look on the configurator this afternoon, and I think from reading the Chinese into this translation, I think it is still white, but they're going to launch a grey option.
Right.
So I'm not sure about if that's maybe just people misinterpreting the pictures, but I'm pretty sure it's white or black at the moment on the factory configurator, and then there's a small note saying light grey.
Yeah, I mean,
that's quite a change for them having a different color.
Yeah, the weird thing is this material they're using is apparently available in 400 different colors. So actually, they could offer blood red, nice mahogany brown, all sorts. But of course, that goes against Tesla's philosophy of reducing the number of options.
It certainly does. But I think just as you move away from the front picture, I think what they're trying to do subtly, but without changing the design language, is to make it feel a little bit more premium. Because certainly the Chinese only market cars, like the Zeekr or the Onvo or the new Li Auto, they're superficially quite flamboyant in their interior design. So I think some of the way that the seats have been redesigned and some of the color schemes, I think, are definitely trying to appeal to the Chinese market.
Yeah, which is interesting because they allegedly took 40,000 orders in China yesterday for this car.
Well, I mean, certainly the August deliveries have now gone, so someone certainly sold some.
Yeah. Now, the other interesting thing when you look at the general seats is they look very similar to the sport seats in the Model 3 Performance. in the sense of that single back, the headrest integrated, and of course the headrest can go up and down, which I don't think has ever been on a Tesla car before, the ability to do that. And of course, several other things to note. The screen, by the way, is the same size, still 8 inches, but underneath it, there's an additional subwoofer, which you can just about see here. If you can see where my mouse is moving, there's a subwoofer under the back. What they have done with these is the middle row match the design language of the front seats, which I actually think looks really good. But of course, the other really significant part is these armrests that can come up, and they're motorized, and you can have them up or down. And of course, that apparently relates to quite a few of the videos when you, because this car has the buttons in the back to lower all the seats. When you do that, it allows them to automatically lower the armrests if they're up, to get that flat cargo loading, should you need it. But yes, it's also, this is the one area where you notice the 8 centimeter less width of an X, because clearly the space between those seats is a lot narrower than the 6-seat Model X. I think it's about half.
I mean, certainly one of the videos that Tesla had uploaded on their website yesterday showed it was perfectly good for a kid to squeeze through, but you certainly wouldn't want a teenager trying to squeeze through those 2 chairs.
No. But those seats are highly versatile. They also recline, and also can recline quite a lot. They can also move back quite a lot. Something that we've got a picture a bit later in our selection to show you. Again, look at that lovely black headliner, or very dark grey headliner. I do really like this. And then this is another picture which is great, where you actually do see the width. There's still quite a bit. And I think, because I suppose the other argument is, why go for a 6-seat over a 7? And I think the advantage is, if you're sitting in the back row, you get that extra leg room in between the seats. And potentially, you know, if you're someone that's bigger, it does allow you to have much more room to move your feet and your legs. And I think that's where maybe people like it. Although maybe it's just the whole captain's chair thing, because I find it interesting. Most of the big models now, they're all doing 6-seater, you know, the ID Buzz, the EV9, they're all doing 6-seater options as well as 7. And I'm wondering whether, in a way, that's one thing the Model X has bequeathed to everyone else, is this idea of doing, you know, more luxurious middle row.
I do wonder, once the launch model is out of the way, will they actually entertain an idea of a 7-seat or not?
I don't think. I think this is it's kind of interesting to me, because apparently there was a comment made, well, the one thing about this car is you'd be able to put 4 passengers in the back as a robotaxi. I do think there's a future for this model as a robotaxi, but we'll perhaps more get onto that. This is that picture. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that shows that it's quite spacious at the back.
Yes, I like this picture because it was one of the larger Chinese guys who were testing around doing pictures, but this clearly shows he's moved that seat all the way back, and he's got masses. I mean, that's almost like a limo. That's proper limo legroom. And this is what I think, again, very appealing to the Chinese market to have this. And I think if you've got bigger kids, you know, kids tend to be getting bigger. If you've got kids that are over 6 foot tall, this is the sort of thing that will really, I think, appeal. One thing I didn't notice, and I've remembered now, is these rear seats. Apparently, the seat itself is 1.5 inches deeper than the rear seats of the normal Y. So actually you get more under thigh support when you're sitting in the back. And of course, one of the things that is upsetting X owners is on the front seats, they've now got an extendable thigh support that you can bring out that extends the seat quite substantially. The sort of thing you get on top end BMWs and Mercedes. And I think, again, that's like a luxury thing that they've added that has, again, never been on a Tesla before, certainly never been on the X. And that, I think, is where this whole question is, well, is this replacing the X? Because this car definitely has features that the X does not. And actually, to go back, someone asked about the roof. I think this shows the roof, actually this one here, the roof clearly goes back right over the rear passengers. So there's still quite a large roof, maybe not as, or it doesn't seem quite as big as the other one. But yes, there's the roof is certainly a very large roof. Right. And then this one here, we can leave it on here as we chat or come back, but this is a comparison between the Model Y as it is now in China, the all-wheel drive long range, the new Model YL, which is effectively an all-wheel drive long range, and then on the right-hand side, the X long range, not the Plaid, the long range. And it's quite interesting, some of the details as you look through, and you realize it's quite a lot longer. It's about 18.5 centimeters longer, but it's still under 5 meters. Now, that is important because, Warren, you may not have realized this, but when you go on the Isle of Wight ferry, if your car's over 5 meters long, you have to pay extra for the ticket.
You do indeed, yes.
So actually having the car under 5 meters, I think, is actually quite significant. And I'm sure that was a design goal to keep it under 5 meters. But it's still eight centimeters shorter than an X. Height, it's gone up by 4 centimeters. That's probably 1.5 inches. And of course, that's that bulbous roof.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still just over 1 centimeter lower than an X. So an X is still a substantially bigger car. And then the real thing is, I investigated the width. Nowhere said the car was any wider or narrower. I think it's the same width as the present car, and of course that is 8 centimeters narrower than an X. So for British and European roads, for someone looking for a 6-seater car, it's way more practical than an X. And then of course the weight is interesting as well. It's only 96 kilograms heavier.
It's amazing how they've managed to extend it that much and keep the weight down. Some very clever engineering going on there.
Yes. But look how much lighter it is than an X. 285 kilograms lighter than an X. But to put this into context, because actually the X itself is not that heavy in the greater things. When we were looking, for example, the VW ID Buzz, that's 2.9 tons. That's 2,900, which is one of the reasons that car, great as they are, one of the reasons that they are not particularly efficient is because they're so heavy. So even a Model X is substantially lighter than one of those, half a ton lighter than one of those. But this car here, at just over 2 tons, I think that's a real achievement with the weight. And of course, the maximum weight has gone up by 150 kilograms, which in a way is to be expected. But 150 kilograms is the weight of 2 normal adults. So it's substantially more carrying capacity. Still, obviously, it's less than the X, but you'll see the difference in the weights with the X are broadly the same. So actually, the carrying capacity is broadly similar to an X. Again, it's really quite interesting to look at that. But the other one that gets me is this storage, 2,500 liters. Again, 400 more than the standard Y, and 360 more than an X. And
I mean, that boot is going to be huge. I think to get that space, you need to have the back two seats down.
yes,
But that's, I mean, if you had the four seats down, that turns it into like a commercial vehicle. You've nearly got a half-ton payload.
oh yeah. This is what gets me about this car. I think this car is a great achievement. I think Tesla China have done a fantastic job on this car, which I think is why there's so much talk about it. Even as we were looking, you know, even if you only wanted it as a four-seater, the fact that you get all that lounging in the back, you know, and then we'll come on to the suspension in a minute. Now, the other thing that's interesting is the performance figures quoted in China for the standard car basically match what we have to pay acceleration boost to get, which I thought was really interesting, 4.3.
And it's worth also saying that the UK figures are like the US, they're 0 to 60, not 0 to 62 either. So that's even more impressive.
Yes. And by the way, that 3.8, I think that is 0 to 60. So I think the X is probably 0 to 100, more like 3.9. But even so, the X is still quicker. There's no doubt that the X is slightly more a higher performing car. But to be honest, 4.5 seconds for a car like this, I think is really impressive. So let's jump past a bit and go to the battery, I think. And there's some interesting things on the battery. So I've been monitoring the talk, and again, we've seen it in China, as you said at the start. They have to publish these certifications, a bit like they do in the EU as well. They have to publish these certifications, so you see what's coming from the official documentation. And Tesla had done this for this new battery that was apparently muted. First news of it came in about February, that LG had developed this new battery that was about, I think it was 6% more charge for the same weight and the same size. So it's a change of chemistry somehow. And basically the YL is launching with this new battery, the 5M, I think it's called the LG 5M battery. Now, essentially, it's matching this Panasonic battery that they only do in America now. And I was watching it more thinking about the Model 3 performance, because, of course, some of those owners have been disappointed that they've only got a 78 kilowatt battery and not an 82, because it has affected performance and power. But clearly this car, and actually in the China, they've now updated the standard car to this 82, the new LG as well. I suspect Berlin is going to move to this new battery, because I think Berlin is building cars with this LG battery, from LG batteries anyway. So I think we're all going to get this 82. But the really interesting thing, of course, is this range, and the Chinese range is crackers. 750 kilometers. I don't know what speed you'd have to be going to do that. But effectively what they're saying is the range is virtually the same between this L model and the standard model. And I think that is a real achievement. To have a car that is bigger, I mean, admittedly, it's only 100 kilogram heavier, but to have a similar range with the same battery, I think is outstanding. So I thought that was very interesting.
It'd be interesting to know if they've made any alterations to the motors, or if it is purely down to aerodynamics. But
Yes.
I've not seen any information yet on the motors.
Yes. The aero, the drag coefficient is showing as 0. Funny.
That's mighty aerodynamic.
Yeah, that's very aerodynamic. Yeah. Well, the drag coefficient of the normal car is 2.2. The L is 2.16, I think, and the X is 2.4. So the X is still 2.4 is very impressive, but 2.16 is really impressive for this Y. And I think combination of those new design aero wheels perhaps and the aero, yes, it's another. And it's interesting, isn't it, because the feedback of everybody of the Juniper is that it's quite a lot more efficient than the previous Model Y. People who have gone from one to the other are all reporting that they're getting much better consumption out of the Juniper.
I do wonder, is there also a little bit of one-upmanship with that aerodynamic figure? Because didn't the new Mercedes CLA come out with a really low drag coefficient? And I can't think for the life of me what that was now, but I think it was just under 0.22. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of marketing on that as well.
Well, the lowest drag, I think, is still the Model S Plaid. I think that's just over 0.2. I think it's yeah, that they really, I'm not quite sure how they got that, but that is still lower than this car. So the other thing that's on here is we expect the efficiency to be on a par, obviously about 4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is quite a lot more than the X at 3.5. And I suppose obviously the tires and wheels we talked about already. Now this price I put in here, I've added on in China, I think it's 8.1% more expensive. So I've kind of done the same thing. So that's why I've got an estimated price of 56,300, which would be amazing. When you think my Model Y all-wheel drive LR, when I bought it, was 55,900 when I bought it in 22. So actually this would be just 500 quid more than the price I paid for mine. But obviously a new one now is about 52. Obviously that's before any colors or anything. But impressive.
Yeah, they really have worked hard on that price. And I suppose that will lead us on in a minute to if this gets sold outside China, can they keep that competitiveness elsewhere? Because that is such a good value. Though, of course, in China, they're under pressure with so many of the indigenous car companies pumping out big cars for cheaper, that Tesla is really under the cosh to make sure that they've got a competitive offer here. And well, so far, it's looking very compelling.
It is. So the other thing I want to talk about is the suspension. Now, as we know,
change here.
Yes, as we know, the suspension on the Y Juniper was improved quite a lot, and I've been for 2 or 3 rides and can confirm that it is improved quite a lot. And of course, the X has adaptive air suspension. But what they're talking about here, I thought was very interesting, is Tesla blurb says continuously variable damping, which suggests some fancy dampers. Now, I find that interesting because, of course, the only car previously that had variable damping in the 3Y lineup was the Model 3 Performance that's been out on the Highland. That's had variable damping where you could select it in the car. But this says continuously variable, which I thought was very interesting. The other thing, one of the other videos they suggested is that there's like some modes you can select. One of them being balanced, which I think is like normal. And then the other one is rear comfort mode. And seems to be around giving the maximum comfort to the rear seat passengers. So these are all things that until we get to drive one, or someone we respect has managed to drive one and we can fully understand what they think of it, we have no idea what that means. But it's not air suspension. It doesn't go up and down, but it looks like they have done something with the ride, and it further underlines that this car is definitely being aimed at a comfort, rear seat comfort is really important, which again, very China thing, isn't it? Very China market specific that they want. But I think that's what a lot of people are actually looking. You know, there's a lot of people that are like, I'm not actually bothered. You know, I'm never going to track this car. You know, I'm probably never going to drive above 100 miles an hour in it. But what I would like is it to be more comfortable and more comfortable in the back, etc. So it's quite interesting at where this is being aimed for. And you could argue again, both those things very suitable to being a taxi.
I'll be really interested to see some of the first test drives of it, because it could go either way really with that type of suspension. Either it's just going to be a very proactive suspension for really bad roads, which would be good for Europe as well, or is it going to be a little bit like the Jaguar system, where it gives you that sort of proper level ride. Of course, some of the Chinese companies are now bringing out some very extravagant suspension systems where you can go over all sorts of bumps, and the car is just literally gliding over everything, because the suspension is doing all sorts of clever things. So it'll be interesting to see what it actually means on the road in this instance.
Yeah, I suspect it's their attempt to keep up with it. I don't think it's.
But I think Tesla were surprised, but they were rightly berated for some of the ride quality of the original Y. It was a pretty rigid ride for a family car.
Yes. Oh no, and yeah, which is why I changed my suspension on mine, because it was, you know, I found it unacceptable.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing how people react and what it actually feels like on the road, because without a doubt, it's going to be in the Y performance, I suspect, and if it actually gets, if it works its way down the range in due course.
Yeah. Anyway, should we go back to more generalized?
I was just looking at my notes here. That you mentioned the subwoofer earlier in the interior. I noticed that it's 18 speakers in this now. That's quite some sound system.
Yes. Yes. And people, again, on some of the videos that I've watched, noting that it's even quieter than the Juniper.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some attention being paid to the NVH of this car. And again, with that new suspension, this could be quite well. Actually, I said Jaguar earlier, didn't I? It could be quite a Jaguar-esque sort of quality if they get it right.
Yeah.
Climate. You didn't really talk about climate, and that was one of the big changes in the back. Actually, it's still only one zone from what we can see in terms of climate control, unless that's not being shown yet in the configurator. But it was noticeable that they've added some pillar air vents for the middle row and the rear row.
You can actually just see both of them in this picture. Yeah, front and rear.
Yeah, so going back to your robotaxi comments earlier, that's a nice feature to have if you're in the back, and also for people tucked in the back row, that they get the full benefit of aircon. Be interesting to see if it is dual zone though, because that I think the X was dual zone, wasn't it, front and back?
Yeah.
Or is it just side to side?
Well, certainly side to side. I mean, the Y now is side to side. I don't know. That's a good question.
I'll have to have a look out for that. What else did we cover? Yes, you mentioned the headrests earlier, and it was funny because the Model S briefly had adjustable headrests, and you did them from the little lumbar control on the side of the seat. But of course, they dropped that quite quickly because it was an expensive little feature. So it's interesting they brought back the manual headrests on this. But yeah, I know it's a complaint from short people that it's just not in the right place.
Yeah, I think you have to. You can see here these notches.
That's it. Yeah.
And I think you have to press both in, and then you can move it up and down.
So definitely looking at comfort there, aren't they?
Yeah, all 4 seats in the back fold flat completely, and all 4 seats are electrically adjustable from buttons in the back, and all 4 are controllable from the dash from the front, so the driver can control all 4 seats as well.
Very handy. Do you have a picture of the boot with the seats down?
No, I don't. I'm sort of.
Ah.
As we were going through, I suddenly thought I haven't got a picture of the boot. There's
Because
two
there's-
pictures I should have had. Yeah, one
There
of
was-
the boot with all seats up, and one of everything flat. But it does go totally flat.
Yeah, the flat load bay is really good. Though I do wonder, will they be offering an accessory to cover the third row cup holders, because they do stick out a bit. So if you've got something very wide that slides in the whole length, you're going to whack your armrests, which is a peculiar little design feature, rather than having a cup holder that pops out. But
Yeah,
don't think-
it's sort of built in the side, isn't it? In fact,
Yeah.
you don't really see it because it's sort of in this area here at the back, isn't it?
yeah, I do wonder, is it sitting on top of the new suspension stuff?
Maybe possibly.
Good stuff. I think we probably covered the main changes. Shall we have a bit of a chat about what we think happens next? Because one of the questions was about the US, and we've kind of hinted at Europe.
Gary has asked this question. Do we think, given what Elon said, do we think it's coming to the UK? So what do we know? Well, we know, and this broke about 2 or 3 weeks ago, that Tesla has been testing this car at the Nürburgring. Which is interesting, because you think, well, and of course the other car they're testing at the Nürburgring is the other Model Y that we're waiting for, which is the Model Y Performance. And we've been, if you watch the chatter, the Model Y Performance has been due about this time, and it hasn't happened yet. But that has been pounding around the Nürburgring, and of course that has allegedly these similar seats, or perhaps more sporty. I would expect that would have an adaptive suspension like the Free, and of course that has a rear spoiler like the previous generation. It also has new design 21-inch wheels, and we're expecting that to be a really fast car, but that has not surfaced yet. But then the other car that they're pounding around the Nürburgring is this, and it's interesting on the article, because I went back and reread it, and apparently the person who took the picture said, first of all, I thought it was the Model Y Performance, but the thing that ticked him off, he suddenly thought, it's on 19-inch wheels, it doesn't make sense. And then he realized it was on 275/19 at the back, and he thought, and then he realized, oh, it's quite a lot bigger, and then it twigged, it's the L, it's the stretch, it's the L model. Now the other thing that's been interesting is the guy, Joe, I can't remember his name now, there's a guy who does drones. There's a guy who draws drones over the the Austin factory. There's a similar guy who sends up a weekly drone over Giga Berlin.
Oh yes, yeah.
Sure, Tesla hates this, but anyway. But what they did notice at Giga Berlin, I think in his last video, was there was about 25 cars all parked, all covered, completely covered. To completely hide, you could sort of see what they were, and of course everyone at the time was going, oh, are they this new cheap model that may be coming, are they the performance model? But now people are thinking, are they this, are they actually, you know, what are they? Because there's a possibility we've actually got 3 new Model Ys coming. We've got the performance, which is a virtual certainty. We've got potentially the stripped down cheap version that's been talked about. And as we talked about before, Warren, they really need to get a version under 40,000 for the road tax if they can.
Absolutely.
But I wonder if actually one of the other cars that they're going to bring here is this. And I really hope so.
Yeah.
Because obviously, since we have been denied the X, and we can say it on the call, Tesla told me over X that that's it, no more S and X coming to the UK at all. So what, and I think they may even have sold out of S, the Plaids. I think they all went. And I think there's still some X's left, but
Just a
basically
handful now. Yeah, nearly
just
all
a
gone.
handful now. Once they're gone, that's it. Tesla are never bringing an S or an X to the UK again.
I mean, certainly from a commercial point of view, I think Tesla would be mad not to be putting this into Berlin next week, literally, because we know that Berlin is under capacity at the moment because, of course, they've had a few issues with some of the European markets being tough. They've got the workforce, they've got the capacity to knock this out. I can't see this not happening unless there is some political issue. It just ticks all the boxes for the European market.
It does, yeah. And if we go back to the sizes again, you know, it's offering 6 seats. It's offering massive more leg room for a car that's 8 inches narrower, is more efficient, is probably going to be substantially cheaper. I mean, the XLR, when it was on sale, I think it was about 95,000, wasn't it? So for this to be probably around 56, 57,000, assuming there's the same just over 8% premium, is very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that would make this an absolute European killer is if it had a good towing capacity, because the Chinese don't tow an awful lot, so I don't think that's an option yet on the configurator in China. But if this had a decent towing capacity, you know, why would you spend, you know, near a six-figure sum on a Land Rover when you could have one of these? Get everyone in the car, good towing capacity, just brilliant.
Yeah, because the X's towing capacity is a lot higher than the Y's.
Yeah,
I think, isn't it? 1.5 tons, 2.5 tons. It's still nowhere near a Range Rover.
no, though you can tow an airplane, if I remember rightly, back in one of the early videos.
Yes, I think it was Boeing 787, wasn't it? Yeah, that was definitely a stunt. You wouldn't be towing that down the M1.
Yeah. So what did Elon say about the American market? Because I missed all that this afternoon.
Well, Elon, I think basically one of the Teslarati, the US Teslarati, did a post and they said that it's astonishing that Tesla have launched a new model and Elon hasn't commented at all, because he hadn't. He had totally ignored it. And then Elon responded saying this car won't be built in the US until the end of next year, and maybe never if Robotaxi takes off. Was his response, which I thought was a bit childish. And well, when has Elon not been childish? A bit of an odd comment for him to make. And it's what I find interesting is the comments from some of the other Teslarati, people like Sawyer Merritt, who are basically going, this is a really stupid decision. That actually this car makes a load of sense. A lot of people will be really interested in it. That actually it would also make a fantastic taxi, as we've been talking about. It would enhance, you know, it's almost like an Uber XL kind of experience, right? With Robotaxi, you could charge quite a lot more, you know, to sit in that, you know, captain's chair with loads more leg room and everything. Would make quite a good car, you know, to be driven around in. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me think. While Elon was distracted over the last 6 months, did China do a bit of a skunk works and just spring this on him?
Well, if they have, can I say they've really pulled it out of the park?
Because they do that. Because I mean, General Motors do something similar. They introduce models that the Americans never see. There's a Buick MPV that's made in China, designed in China, engineered in China. It just happens to have a Buick badge on it. I think the latest Mazda has been designed and built in China, but they're sticking a Mazda badge on it. So there's lots of engineering stuff going on in China without it being directed by other outside bodies. It's quite interesting.
The other Tesla senior person that did comment on it on the YL was Max, who is the global head of supercharging, I believe. And I also believe he's a Brit, which is interesting. He made a comment about how spacious the third row seat is. So that tells you he sat in it.
That's a very good point. Yes, and
which it makes you think, well, where did he sit in it?
That's a very, very good question.
Where was the car that he sat in?
So basically, I think we're both saying pretty much the same thing, that it'd be commercial idiocy of Tesla not to be building this and selling this in Europe and the UK. So I think, and certainly from the initial feedback I've seen, this really would draw people back to the showrooms, where at the moment they're looking elsewhere because they've either got a big family or they need a more economical big car, where the X just never could tick that box.
Or people like, one of our ex-members who had a Model X for 7 years, decided I've got to replace it. The car was getting quite old, and they've gone and bought a Kia EV9. And, still stuck with EV, but Tesla has lost that customer. Now, she would have bought a new X and was planning to buy a new X, but wouldn't countenance left-hand drive. And of course, that whole left-hand drive thing is a bit, because I know you also want to talk about the stalks. That is, of course, an interesting thing. The problem with the left-hand drive, even though you get used to it, I mean, I've just driven all over Europe in a right-hand drive car around Europe. It's perfectly fine. You adapt to it. There's very few situations where it's a problem. And I'm sure driving a left-hand drive car here is very similar. The problem is it just puts people off in the showroom.
No, absolutely, and that leads very nicely actually into why the Model 3 sales are doing quite well in the UK, but perhaps not as buoyant as they once were. And I wonder, is Tesla starting to realise that initial first impressions when a ICE driver or a non-EV driver is persuaded to finally sit in a Tesla, the last thing you want to do is work out how to use the indicators.
Yeah, and it's funny because I almost missed that, because that literally came out the same night as all the stuff with the YL. So it was very almost take out the trash day, just slip it out. Maybe we won't notice. But yes, and also they're offering a retro kit, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I'd say Sexy Buttons will be worried by that, because they're certainly selling a few add-ons to those who like the convenience of something else. I've just noticed that we've had another question in the chat bar from David. How do you feel about this new Model Y variant being larger rather than smaller? Surprised, disappointed, or happy? That's a really good question, because I think for the European market and in the UK, one of the reasons why Tesla sales are fairly static is that it's doing really well in the sort of larger mid-sized family cars, but of course has absolutely nothing in the marketplace to deal with when people wanted a Ford Focus or a Nissan Qashqai, there is nothing in the Tesla range that they can offer it. Now, obviously Tesla would say, oh, you buy a 3 or 4 year old second-hand one, but that's not necessarily how people think. So it'd be interesting to see if the cheap Model Y, if it ever comes along, is physically different, or if it is just a decontented model. But what do you think, Andy? Do you think that they're missing a trick by not having a smaller, more family-friendly one?
Yes, I do. And of course, that was a classic thing, isn't it, of Elon-itis, because he convinced himself that it was all about Cybercab. And I think he went too early on that. I think there's quite a few decisions they've made that have ended up being not wise, looking back. And hopefully this is the start of them getting their act together and pulling back. Because the other thing that's interesting on the Elon front is there was a story a couple of days ago that apparently Elon is putting this his party politics thing on the shelf. and wants to concentrate on his business interests. And I think we would all welcome that. It's like, never mind the rest of it, just keep working on Tesla and the rest of it. But yeah, I agree, David. I think they have missed the trick. I think there's lots of people who are waiting for the small Tesla, whatever that will be. There's still rumors, there's going to be a variant of the Cybercab, because the Cybercab allegedly only has a 40 kilowatt hour battery.
And has a wheelbase very similar to a Model 3, doesn't it? So you do wonder what's going to happen with it.
Yes. The other thing with Cybercab was Tesla shoe it last weekend at the British Motor Show.
Indeed, it's interesting that there is one in the UK still.
Yes, I was astonished. And again, on X, somebody just messaged me with pictures. I was like, okay. So I posted it. But yes, it was like, oh, why are you suddenly showing Cybercab again? I thought that was very interesting. So, yeah.
It would be. I think. I suppose the problem is if you're making big commercial decisions from an American perspective, and particularly from a Texan perspective now, a small family car just isn't high on your list of priorities, and that's probably why we ended up with the Cybertruck being hitting the roads before a more family-friendly the infamous $25,000 car that kept on being talked about.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Cybertruck's been a bit of a dud.
Indeed. I mean, maybe just before we wrap,
the product is a dud, but sales-wise, it has been a dud.
Yeah, I mean, maybe before we wrap up, because I know we're just gone past 9. I noticed that the Model S and Model X in the US, which is now the last active market where you can configure one, because I don't think you can even configure them in China anymore. It is just America where you can actually configure them now. America where you can configure them. They're now throwing everything into the package. So you get FSD, you get supercharging, you get connectivity, and you even get a tire and paint guarantee type thing as well. Now, the last time I remember someone doing that was Jaguar, when they were trying to sell the last remaining V8 XKs because they had so many left to flog. I just wondered, is this a chance to do the last push on the S and X before they do something interesting with the Cybertruck tech and turn that into a new X?
Well, I personally think, and everyone jumped to the same conclusion when they saw this. This is the end of the X.
It does feel like the end of the run, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Which is a real shame because, can I say, as an XX owner, and I know there was another X owner on here earlier, that actually the X still has a certain je ne sais quoi. I think the one thing I always loved was that windscreen that came all the way back over your head. That was amazing driving. You could just see, it was almost like being in a helicopter. You know, you could just see anywhere. And it was quite imperious on the road because the size of it, you know, it's just so big and wide. It did have this kind of imperious feel. And I do understand people like another committee member we both know who loves her white Model X. It's just like, you know, there's just something really special about it. I just love the Model X, and I do completely get that. But when you look at it, you know, 8 centimeters narrower, so much easier. It's 8 centimeters shorter. It's still going to give you virtually the same accommodation inside. It's, you know, and it's going to be 30-40 grand cheaper. I mean, dude,
and of course the S is what, 13 years now it's been on sale in the US, and the X is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year when it was launched. So for any manufacturer to keep a car going that long without very significant changes is quite something. But they'll be having all sorts of issues, I guess, with some of the suppliers because they would have done some of those deals when Tesla was a mere minnow of a company compared to what it is now.
Yes. And I would hope that actually what they do is they launch a whole higher level platform based on some of the fantastic tech that is in the Cybertruck: steer-by-wire, four-wheel steering, 4680, all the rest of it. And now some of that I think may trickle down into Cybercab, perhaps. But
Actually, one of the Cybertruck techs, I'm surprised, didn't appear in the YL, given the lifestyleness of the vehicle and the China preference for his vehicle to load. I really was surprised that didn't make its way into it. I do wonder what's making them stop, or if that is something they really have tied to the 800-volt architecture.
Well, they want to sell Powerwalls, don't they? That's the cynical answer to that.
Yeah, so I think we're probably all agreed that the S and X is on its last legs, but it'll be interesting to see what Tesla do for a Halo model, because I think if they want to keep the Chinese manufacturers at bay, they do need a Halo model to show the innovation, to show the excitement, to grab the attention. And I think Cybertruck did that for a certain extent, but the fact it's not selling particularly well and it's not going to transfer to other parts of the world, they need to do something with all that technology.
I thought they were going to launch it in the Middle East and even in China.
Well, I thought it'd be in the Middle East. I mean, June busting, whatever you call it, it'd be perfect for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's what Lamborghini did with their LM002 in the 80s, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
You thought it would be great. So, Roger made a comment about an under 40,000 car. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Tesla desperately needs an under 40,000 pound car.
Yeah.
And I don't think they'll get down to under 37 to get this the new allowance thing, the grant that some cars are getting. But they do need to get under 40, and I do think this cut down Y. And I suspect it's only going to be decontent. I mean, they're not. I don't know. I mean, what would you do? Make it shorter?
Yeah, I suspect. I mean, we had a good look around the Juniper a few months back, didn't we, Andy? When we were thinking about how could you make a sub 40 car, and actually, if you're any other manufacturer, it'd be dead easy. You'd take out the rear screen. You'd not have ventilated seats. You might find a cheaper wheel supplier. And then, hey presto, you maybe trim your profit margin a tiny bit and you've got a sub 40 car.
Well, allegedly, the sub 40 car's only getting a 50 kilowatt hour battery.
Well, that would obviously be a big saving in terms of battery.
Yeah. So it may only have a 200-mile range. But if you are looking for a cheaper car just to do like shopping trips or whatever, it would be fine. You know, my dad's now got a Leaf, a 40 kilowatt Leaf, perfectly fine. Never has range anxiety with it because he never does big trips. So it's like it can work for certain people, but it's that under 40,000 I think is really important. What do you think will be the next vehicle to be made in the UK, in Berlin for the UK? This.
I think it's going to be the YL.
I think so. Yeah.
And if we're lucky, they'll have that budget version. I mean, bring back the old Popular Plus or the trim level. You know, get the nice, easy, nice, cheap model.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. It's got to be the Y2L because I mean Berlin is set up for the Y. The supply chain's already there. They've got a lot of space where they could easily, the bits that are physically different, I can't see it being difficult to sort out.
No.
I mean, when you consider that Porsche run the 911, the Boxster, and the Cayman down one line, it's not going to be difficult for Tesla to run the Y and the YL down one line. That's for sure.
No, I don't think so. Although obviously you can't talk about what you saw in Berlin.
I can't, no, but yeah.
just saying. What you may or may not have seen. Yeah. The only thing when we went the year before is we did notice things, and it was interesting. About 2 or 3 months later, it all came out anyway. So it was like, oh, okay.
I mean, if you do watch that Berlin Gigafactory drone, I mean, the amount of space that they've built over the last 2 years on that site, it's clearly got capacity for a lot more than it does in the moment.
Well, they're also the thing with Giga Berlin. You got to remember, they're building cars there for other markets. So they're now building cars for Taiwan. They're now just started selling cars into Turkey. They're looking to, and that also they'll be selling cars into India from Berlin. Although, because the thing about Taiwan and India is, for political reasons, they won't take cars from China. So what is interesting is Tesla have this because they have these three big factories. They can sort of get around all these world geopolitical issues, like Australia. Oh, you'll take them from China, fine. You're getting your China, and then it's like Taiwan. Oh, you won't take them from China, but you can take them from Berlin. Berlin is now building Model Ys for Canada. And
it's whoever made the decision to have the 3 hubs and spoke model, it really is paying off for them now.
Oh, it has, yeah. And let's not mention Mexico, because we don't talk about Mexico anymore, do we?
Yeah, well, a lot of companies are pulling out of Mexico now. I think I saw, was it Nissan or Renault pulling out of there, and so it's big changes.
Yeah. David's made a good point. India's right-hand drive. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? A lot of people go, "Oh, it's right-hand drive. It's not going to happen." That's one of the reasons I always retweet new FSD videos that are right-hand drive.
Well, indeed, it's not just us in Australia, but India, and of course, we mustn't forget Hong Kong. Whilst a small market, is quite an important market.
Well, they just last day or so did a new video in Japan.
Oh, right-hand drive as well, yes.
Right-hand drive, yeah.
So yeah,
I don't think anything quite beats that roundabout in Swindon. But anyway,
well, we've hit 9:15, so we better wrap up and let everyone get off to have their dinner or hot chocolate or whatever. Yeah, Andy, thank you so much for delving deep into all the information. I mean, this is seriously hot off the press stuff. It's only 24 hours since it became public. I think as an owners club, it's nice that we can sort of do these sort of things, have an informal chat, use our expertise and our knowledge to interpret what might happen in the future. And also we can, reflect the views of our members to Tesla and maybe twist their arm to encourage them to do the right thing. So yeah, thank you everyone who joined us, and I'm sure we'll get this uploaded to YouTube pretty sharpish, because I think there'll be quite a lot of interest in this over the weekend as the more people realize what's happened in China.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that we think Tesla should bring this to the UK market.
Yeah, I think that's the under 40k and the long wheelbase. Yeah, particularly as we're not going to get the S and X, so I think that's a job done. Yeah. Thank you for everyone who put questions in and stayed with us during the live broadcast. Much appreciated. It's nice to have the company. Anyone who's at Silverstone Festival this weekend, we have a club stand. It's the first time we have an official club stand at the festival, right in the heart of Petrol Head land. So it'd be really good to fly the flag for electric drive and enjoyment and high performance. So do come and say hello. And if you've got any membership or Tesla questions, do look me out. David will be there as well on Friday, and a few other committee members on Saturday and Sunday. So do come and say hello. But I think on that note, Andy, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your company, and look out for the next In Conversation when we have something juicy to talk about. And we'll draw that to a close. Good night.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.